My next guest, Javier Pérez, back on the James Show. He's a legal expert that is going to solve a question here. As it bounced back and forth between media platforms, one of them is saying Trump is off the hook with all of his court cases and the whole Jack Smith situation. The other side's saying Trump's not off the hook just yet. What does Javier Pérez say?
Thanks for having me. So this is really kind of a question of what's possible versus what's actually going to happen. And just for practical purposes, kind of where the cases are, Jack Smith is not long for this world, right? He's not going to stay in that role once Trump takes office. So that's why there's all this reporting about him contemplating stepping down ahead of time. Not only has Trump already been held to be immune for official presidential acts, that was the Supreme Court ruling from earlier this year, but the Department of Justice has a longstanding policy not to prosecute sitting presidents while they're in office. So if there's kind of multiple layers there that really make it highly unlikely, if it's possible at all, for Jack Smith to be able to do anything. And I think that's why.
Well, did I hear like a little bit of daylight, a little bit of possibility that whoever's after Trump or the next time a Democrat administration gets in, they could maybe revive some of these issues?
You know, I think that's a good question. A question I've had about this is, you know, is there not a statute of limitations on some of these things? We're talking about 4+ years ago, where, you know, it may not be it may not be possible to still bring those kinds of claims. But nevertheless, I do think it's a political question more than it is a legal one. So
what were the Jack Smith charges? Which cases was he in charge of?
So he's got he's kind of overseeing the multiple prosecutions. So there was the Georgia one. There is the Florida documents case,
right?
And then the ones related to January 6th.
Yeah. So he's a Jan 6, and so but the Georgia one, that's not under his purview, right? That has to do with the state actors there, like the Fannie Willis and that crew. Do I have that right?
So there's state law violations, but you know the thought is there was some coordination with the federal prosecutions. And there wouldn't be necessarily federal immunity if Trump were to pardon himself. That wouldn't apply to state law claims. But, you know, this is, I think, it looks like a coordinated effort. No, I mean, I think that these things aren't happening in a vacuum.
Well, I haven't heard anything about the $750 million judgment or whatever that was brought against Trump. Whatever happened with that, the Jean Carroll case? Yeah,
so that's a civil judgment or penalty, if you will, in New York State Court. So theoretically, you know, if Trump had not won, he could be, you know, pursued to collect that. But again, you know, this is kind of an unprecedented circumstance where you have all these things in the works while he's going to be sitting in office. And I think the kind of overarching rule that trumps those prosecutions is the fact that he can't be prosecuted while he's in office for any state or federal crime.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier. It was $83 million judgment. I just Googled it after I said that to get the right number. All right, so what happens? What happens next? Is this just all going to vanish in the air like a cigarette smoke?
I think so long as things go according to plan, you know, if, for example, Matt Gaetz or whoever it is going to take on the role of Attorney General, certainly don't expect him to proceed with prosecuting President Trump. And, you know, at the state level, he's got that kind of twofold immunity, being in office and his official acts being exempt. So I do think it's going to kind of fizzle. How exactly that plays out, you know, never say never in terms of what people might try, but the landscape is pretty smooth sailing ahead as far as criminal prosecutions once he takes office.
Well, Javier Pérez, I appreciate having a lawyer explain some of this to us. You can find him online, crainbrogdon.com, crainbrogdon.com. Appreciate your time, Javier.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
All right. He's a good man.